What is habeas corpus? Habeas corpus refers to a legal principle protecting against unlawful detention following courts to access imprisonment illegality. So based on the Article 5 Clause 2 of the Federal Constitution guarantees habeas corpus to challenge unlawful detention, while Article 4 Clause 1 upholds constitutional supremacy. Despite this, laws like SOSMA, POTA and POCA restrict judicial review. Cases like Teh Cheng Po and Karpal Singh affirm the judiciary roles in protecting rights. Besides, habeas corpus is a vital legal remedy protecting individual liberty, particularly through habeas corpus et subjiciendum, which challenges unlawful detention. So under Article 5 Clause 2 of the Federal Constitution says that anyone detained unlawfully may seek redress in the High Court. So Malaysia also recognized writs like habeas corpus et testificandum, and another one is habeas corpus et prosequendum, though broader writs are less common than in the UK or US. While courts cannot question detention reasons, habeas corpus addresses procedural flaws, abuse of power, and bad faith. Cases like Operation Lalang and Muhammad Izam and Ketua Polis Negara highlights that the tension between the national security and judicial oversight, reaffirming its role in upholding fairness and fundamental rights. Then once again I said habeas corpus is a powerful legal tool in Malaysia that helps protect people from being detained unlawfully. It's used in several situations. First, we have preventive detentions. Laws like POTA, POCA and SOSMA allows the government to detain people for reasons like national security. But courts may make sure all procedures are followed properly, as seen in the case of Tan Boon Liat and Menteri Ahli Dalam Negeri in the year of 1976, says that the court rules that if the procedures are not followed, the detention is unlawful. Second, we have immigration cases like overstaying a visa. So here habeas corpus can challenge detentions if the authorities don't follow the rules, like we see in the case of Muhammad Izam Muhammad Noor case. So in criminal cases, it protects against unlawful arrest or prolonged detentions without judicial review, as in the case of R. Ramachandran and Menteri Ahli Dalam Negeri 1987. The court even looked at whether the decisions to detain someone was fair. Finally, habeas corpus allow courts to review detention, ensuring they are not unfair, illegal or arbitrary, and protect basic rights of holding authorities accountable, such as in the case of Bonmadane and Bosch. The US Supreme Court upheld detained rights to challenge their detention, and similar with the case of A.K. Gopalan and State of Madras in 1950.
As for the comparative analysis, habeas corpus is a universal legal remedy for individual liberty, but its application varies across jurisdiction due to differences in legal system, constitutional framework, and state power balance. Firstly, common law and civil law. Habeas corpus, originating from English common law, is a judicial review system that ensures compliance with due process and examines procedural and substantive legality in detention cases. The Habeas Corpus Act 1679 in the UK formalised the writ of habeas corpus, enabling the House of Lords to challenge unlawful detention of immigrants in the case of R against Secretary of State for the Home Department, ex parte Kawaja 1984. For civil law countries like France and Germany offer similar protection through constitutional or statutory provision with judicial review, often limited to procedural aspect. For instance, German Grand Gazette provided that constitutional guarantee against unlawful detention, while the Mephisto case 1958 emphasized individual right through constitutional mechanism. Secondly, scope of application. Habeas corpus, a right enriched in the US Constitution, Article 1, Section 9, allows non-citizens to challenge criminal and administrative detention. The Supreme Court extended habeas corpus to Guantanamo Bay detainees in Boumediene and Bush 2008, allowing them to file petition even outside US territory. In India, habeas corpus is a fundamental right under Article 32 and Article 226 of the Constitution, used to challenge private and public detention, court review, procedural and substantive aspect of detention. The emergency 1975 until 1977 saw the suspension of habeas corpus petition, leading to criticism and the case of ADM Jabalpur and Shivkan Sukla 1976. In Malaysia, habeas corpus is a legal tool available under Section 365 of the Criminal Procedural Code and the Federal Constitution. However, its application is limited in preventive detention cases and is often challenged under the Internal Security Act ISA, as seen in the case of Tan Boon Liat against Menteri Hal Ehwal Dalam Negeri 1976. Thirdly, in the UK, preventive detention is rare and must comply with the Human Rights Act 1998 and the European Convention on Human Rights ECHR. Anti-terrorism laws allow limited detention without trial. In A and others against Secretary of State for the Home Department, the House of Lords declared indefinite detention under the Anti-Terrorism Crime and Security Act 2001 incompatible with ECHR. In India, preventive detention laws like the National Security Act NSA permit detention without trial up for 12 months. Court uphold this law by scrutinized procedural compliance. The Supreme Court upheld the NSA in AK Roy against Union of India 1982, emphasizing procedural safeguard. In Malaysia, preventive detention laws like the Repeal Internal Security Act ISA permit extended detention without trial. Courts are generally limited in reviewing such detention, as seen in the case of Karam Singh and Menteri Ahli Dalam Negeri 1969, which upheld the ISA discretionary powers. Fourthly, in the US court review procedural and substantive ground for detention, even in national security cases. For instance, in Hamdi against Rumsfeld 2004, the Supreme Court ruled that US citizens detained as enemy combatants have the right to challenge their detention. In India court prioritized personal liberty and procedural compliance, using habeas corpus petition to challenge police custody or administrative detention. The Supreme Court used this method in Sunil Batra against Delhi Administration 1978, addressing inhuman prison condition. In Malaysia, Malaysian court prioritized procedural compliances with limited review of substantive ground. They often defer to subjective satisfaction of the detaining authority, as seen in the case of Muhammad Izam Muhammad Noor against Ketua Polis Negara 2002. As for the challenge and limitation, habeas corpus is a potent legal tool for safeguarding personal liberty, but its efficacy is influenced by the interplay of individual rights, administrative discretion, and judicial interpretation. Firstly, preventive detention law, which allows administrative authority to detain individual without trial due to suspicion of future misconduct, limiting the effectiveness of habeas corpus. Court may defer to the detaining authority subjective satisfaction, making it difficult to challenge the detention's legality, which can be seen in Karam Singh against Menteri Hal Ehwal Dalam Negeri, Malaysia, that at last upheld this discretion. Secondly, judicial restraint. Court often take a cautious approach to reviewing administrative decisions, especially in national security or public order cases, which can be undermine the effectiveness of habeas corpus. They often focus on procedural compliance, justifying detention on vague grounds like national security threat. This approach, as seen in the case of Muhammad Izam Muhammad Noor against Ketua Polis Negara, emphasised limited judicial review in preventive detention cases. Thirdly, suspension during emergencies. Habeas corpus right can be suspended during states of emergency, as government have extraordinary power to maintain public order and security. However, this suspension often leaves detainees without legal recourse, as seen in the controversial ADM Jabalpur against Chief Kane Sukla in the case of India, where Supreme Court ruled that habeas corpus was unavailable during emergency. Fourthly, broad and vague grounds for detention. Administrative detention law often use vague terms like public order or national security, making it challenging to challenge detention based on specific evidence. Court may accept these broad grounds without concrete proof, as seen in the case of Boumediene and Bush 2008, where the US Supreme Court ruled that detainees at Guantanamo Bay had the right to challenge their detention. In conclusion, habeas corpus in administrative law ensures accountability and legality in detention, preventing arbitrary deprivation of liberty. However, its effectiveness can be limited by judiciary discretion. Thank you.